Good morning, everybody. Welcome to episode 17 of FranFunnel Live. Special guest here this morning, one of the co-founders of Metric Collective, the parent company of Franchise Help and FranFunnel. Sandeep Kella is in from Los Angeles to visit us. Welcome.
Thank you.
First FranFunnel Live. So, look, I thought this morning we would talk about kind of the industry as a whole. You joined franchising in 2010, have been at kind of the intersection of technology and lead gen at franchise development now for coming up on almost a decade. And so I guess I'll start this morning by just simply saying, what's changed? I mean, you've done it for 8 years. What kind of is different today than it was back in 2010?
Yeah, a lot's changed. It's, I think when we were starting, technology adoption was in its infancy in the space. And I think a very positive development has been that I think people are realizing now that they have to embrace technology.
Yeah.
It's kind of like adapt or die. And so ultimately that's good for us. I think there was a lot, in the early days, there was a lot of pushback. I'm like, oh, I don't need that, I know what I'm doing. And I think there's just more awareness of how transformative, incorporating technology into your business can be.
Yeah.
So but by no means do I think we're where we need to be and where adoption needs to be, but I think we're getting there.
Yeah, so when you think about these franchises specifically that you've spoken with, the question always comes up about expertise, right? Do you see, have they become better experts in this tech stuff? Have they just been more willing to talk to other people who are experts? Kind of, how do you see the actual franchises evolving?
Well, look, I mean, the reality is most of these folks aren't technologists at their core, and so their core competency is, building the operations of a particular business. So what we found is that the folks that we have the most success with are the ones that look at it as we need to partner with technology people and truly have a partnership with them. I think one of the challenges in the industry is that people are so used to being sold something that there's a skepticism around having a true partnership. And that's what we're trying to change, through content like this, just to be more open and transparent about what we're doing. Because I think that's, if we do it correctly, adoption is going to increase and everyone's going to benefit.
Yeah, I think it's funny, you and I have talked about this before, but essentially when you have, when you deliver on something that someone is paying you for in this industry, and they'll look at you and they'll say something like, oh, wow, like I didn't think that was going to work out, or I didn't think that was actually going to happen. And you're like, what did you think was going to happen? Like, what ultimately was the outcome that you were looking for? I think so. In the 8 years that you've been in this, I think there's a couple major trends of things that have changed. I think number one is just the rise of the phone, right? Probably when you guys started, everything was more of a desktop and now the mobile. I mean, would you agree with that? Have you seen it? Like, is it transform? I mean, it just seems to be what I would point to.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the early days, it probably evolved from print into online, which was mostly desktop. And given franchising is such a big life decision, I think there was a lot of there was concern that people wouldn't really look at a franchise on their phone. It's too serious of a decision to look at your phone, as if people bifurcate their habits on serious stuff I'm going to do on desktop and I'm going to play video games on my phone.
Sure.
And that's just not the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, we see industries like insurance, financial services, education. I mean, everything is becoming mobile now. Like the most important choices you're making on your phone.
Sure.
I just wouldn't imagine.
Sure.
So talk a little bit about the future. We obviously, we have a good base of experience that's happening. I won't ask you about the cutting edge of technology, but I'll ask you about the franchise space in general. Kind of like, what do you see as the things maybe for the rest of 2018, 2019 as, hey, these are things that I think people are going to start to really hear a lot about and think about as we move forward?
Sure. Well, I think people are going to realize that the challenge in any franchise is you don't really start to unlock operating leverage until you have a lot of units. And so it's challenging in the early days because you've got 30 units and you don't have 25 units, you don't have a ton of royalties coming in to really make investments into your infrastructure.
Sure.
And that's where I think technology adoption can really cut a lot of those early costs and make those operations more efficient so that the franchisors can scale faster.
Right. It's been interesting. I mean, we talk about technology really has dual purposes, right? You just alluded to one, which is lower costs, right? So things that would otherwise take lots of time or lots of effort, now you can do quicker, but also raising revenue.
Yep.
I think sometimes we debate frequently which of those messages is going to resonate more.
Sure.
With the bigger companies, I think you're right. You got to raise revenue, right? It's like, hey, top line growth. That's all we're really worried about here. But with the smaller ones, where every nickel matters, I mean, I certainly think that's absolutely true.
And I think just to add to that, one really positive trend I've observed is that more and more of these folks are becoming analytical in the way they look at things and the return on what their investment is. And ultimately, that bodes well for us, because I think the things we do, the way we think, it's generally, okay, if we're going to build this technology, it's going to yield a certain positive result on the other side of that.
Certainly. Whenever we get an Excel worksheet from a client, it's even if it's not necessarily the best analysis for us, we're just sitting there going like, this is great, right? Like, this means that we're operating against certain metrics and we're actually being measured in a fair way instead of some sort of like, ultimately what's going on out there.
That's right.
So, hey, thanks for joining us. Sandeep, next time he's out in New York, we'll get him on again, and thanks for having me.